Certainly. Here's a comprehensive life story of William James, one of the most influential American philosophers and psychologists. William James, 1842–1910. Life and legacy, early life and education. William James was born on January 11, 1842, in New York City, into an intellectually prominent family. His father, Henry James Sr., was a theologian with mystical leanings, and his younger brother, Henry James, became one of the most important American novelists. The James family was affluent and cosmopolitan, moving frequently between the United States and Europe. This early exposure to diverse cultures and ideas profoundly shaped William's intellectual development. Originally inclined toward art, James eventually turned to science. He entered Harvard University in 1861 and studied chemistry, physiology, and anatomy. Though he received a medical degree in 1869, he never practiced medicine due to lingering health issues and philosophical uncertainty. Career and contributions to psychology. James began teaching at Harvard in 1872, eventually holding positions in physiology, psychology, and philosophy. He is often considered the father of American psychology. In 1890, James published The Principles of Psychology, a monumental 2-volume work. It introduced influential ideas such as the stream of consciousness, the mind as a continuous flow of thought, the self, divided into the I, pure ego, and the me, empirical self, habit, as a fundamental force in shaping behavior. James rejected the reductionism of experimental psychology and emphasized introspection and personal experience, helping shape a functional approach to psychology that focused on the purpose of consciousness and behavior. Philosophical work. Pragmatism and radical empiricism. In philosophy, William James is best known for his development and promotion of pragmatism, a uniquely American philosophical tradition. Pragmatism. James argued that the truth of an idea or belief is determined by its practical consequences and usefulness. His book, Pragmatism, 1907, popularized this approach and remains a classic in American philosophy. Radical empiricism. He extended his views with the doctrine of radical empiricism, holding that relations and connections are as much a part of experience as the things themselves. This idea challenged both materialism and idealism. Religious thought and mysticism. James's work was deeply humanistic and open to the spiritual dimension of life. His most famous contribution to the study of religion is The Varieties of Religious Experience, 1902, based on his Gifford Lectures. In this work, he explored personal, mystical, and religious experiences, the psychological and practical impact of religious belief, the diversity and subjectivity of religious life. James treated religious experience with respect, arguing that such experiences can be powerful, transformative, and meaningful, even if not empirically verifiable. Personal life and death. William James married Alice Howe Gibbons in 1878. They had 5 children. Despite frequent health struggles, both physical and psychological, James maintained a prolific academic career and was a charismatic lecturer. He died of heart failure on August 26, 1910, in Chocorua, New Hampshire, leaving behind a profound legacy. Psychology. Founder of functional psychology. Pioneer in understanding consciousness, habit, and emotion. Philosophy. Key figure in American pragmatism and empiricism. Religion. Opened the field of religious experience to psychological and philosophical analysis. Influenced major thinkers such as John Dewey, Carl Jung, Alfred North Whitehead, and Richard Rorty. Major works: The Principles of Psychology. 1890, The Will to Believe and Other Essays. 1897, Talks to Teachers on Psychology. 1899, The Varieties of Religious Experience. 1902, Pragmatism. 1907, The Meaning of Truth. 1909, Essays in Radical Empiricism. 1912, Posthumous. Here is a detailed section on William James's academic career and psychological work, suitable for academic or Biographical use, academic career and psychological work, early academic appointments. William James began his academic career at Harvard University in 1872, initially as an instructor in physiology. Despite never practicing medicine, his scientific background and wide-ranging intellect quickly made him a central figure in Harvard's intellectual community. Over time, his teaching appointments evolved, and he became a professor of psychology, and later philosophy. His broad, interdisciplinary approach, bridging medicine, biology, psychology, and philosophy, reflected his belief in the interconnectedness of experience and thought. The birth of scientific psychology in America. William James played a foundational role in establishing psychology as a scientific discipline in the United States. At a time when psychology was still emerging from philosophy and physiology, James helped carve out a new path for the field. In 1875, he taught what is often cited as the first psychology course in America, titled The Relations Between Physiology and Psychology. Around the same time, he established a psychological laboratory at Harvard, informal at first, but a precursor to formal experimental psychology labs, The Principles of Psychology, 1890. James's most influential psychological work is The Principles of Psychology, published in 1890. This two-volume magnum opus was over a decade in the making and became a foundational text in the field of psychology. Key concepts introduced include the stream of consciousness. James argued that consciousness is not a collection of discrete ideas, but a continuous flow, a radical shift from earlier, more mechanical models of the mind. The self. He developed a rich theory of the self, dividing it into the I, the pure ego, the experiencing subject. The me, the empirical self, consisting of material, social, and spiritual aspects. Habit. James emphasized the power of habit in shaping human behavior, suggesting that character is largely formed through repeated action, emotion, James Lange theory. Independently of Carl Lange, James proposed that emotions are the perception of bodily changes in response to stimuli, i.e., we feel afraid because we tremble, rather than trembling because we are afraid. Functionalism. Unlike Wilhelm Wundt and Edward Titchener, who focused on the structure of consciousness, James developed a functional approach. His focus was on the purpose of mental processes, how they help individuals adapt to their environments. This functionalism later influenced the development of applied psychology, educational psychology, and behaviorism, and marked a departure from introspective and reductionist models. Pedagogical impact. James was a gifted teacher and communicator, known for his energetic lectures and deep empathy for his students. His book Talks to Teachers on Psychology, 1899, based on his lectures, brought psychological insights into the classroom and became widely read among educators. Legacy in psychology helped establish psychology as an independent scientific discipline in the U.S., introduced holistic, experiential, and pragmatic approaches to understanding the mind, influenced generations of psychologists, including John Dewey, Carl Rogers, and Abraham Maslow. William James's psychological work was empirical yet philosophical, scientific yet deeply humanistic. He saw psychology not as a sterile science, but as a way to understand lived experience, laying the groundwork for modern humanistic and existential psychology. Certainly. Here's a detailed and academically styled section on philosophy, pragmatism, and radical empiricism, introduction to James's philosophical work. While William James made foundational contributions to psychology, his most enduring legacy lies in philosophy. He became a central figure in two major philosophical movements: pragmatism, a uniquely American approach that evaluates truth by its practical effects; radical empiricism, a theory of knowledge emphasizing direct experience and the relations within. James approached philosophy not as abstract speculation, but as a tool to make sense of lived experience. His work sought to reconcile science, religion, ethics, and personal meaning, making philosophy relevant to the actual problems of human life. Pragmatism, Pragmatism, as developed by William James, was heavily influenced by his friend and fellow philosopher Charles Sanders Peirce, who coined the term. James took Peirce's original ideas and made them accessible and impactful to a broader audience. Core principles: truth as a process. James argued that truth is not a fixed, eternal property. Instead, truth happens to an idea when it proves itself useful in real-life situations. Ideas as tools. Ideas should be judged by their practical consequences, how well they help us navigate experience, solve problems, and live meaningfully. Pluralism and openness. James emphasized a pluralistic universe, one where multiple perspectives and truths can coexist. He rejected dogmatism, whether religious or scientific. Major work: Pragmatism, a new name for some old ways of thinking, 1907. This book became one of the most influential philosophical texts in American thought. It emphasized experience, fallibility, and usefulness over abstract metaphysical certainty. The true is the name of whatever proves itself to be good in the way of belief. The Will to Believe. In his essay, The Will to Believe, 1896, James defended the right to believe in certain truths without prior evidence, especially in moral and religious contexts. He challenged the idea that belief must always follow rational proof. In cases where decisions are momentous, unavoidable, and uncertain, James argued that passional nature, emotions, hopes, and commitments has a legitimate role in belief. This became a cornerstone argument for religious faith in a modern, skeptical world. Radical empiricism. Radical empiricism extended his pragmatic theory of truth into a metaphysics of experience.